The crowd inside the Pasadena Civic Auditorium is buzzing with a familiar energy, the kind that precedes a legend. But tonight, that legend isn't a comeback, it's an arrival. A single spotlight hits the center of the massive stage, and the audience gasps. Standing there, barely visible in the vastness of the venue, is a 9-year-old boy. He's wearing a black fedora, a single white glove sparkling under the lights, and a tiny rhinestone-studded jacket. He is a carbon copy of the king of pop, and as the opening synth of Billie Jean begins to pulse through the speakers, the crowd erupts, already on their feet. But before he can even take his first step, Simon Cowell, his face etched with a weary skepticism, raises a hand to stop the music. The auditorium falls into a stunned silence. Simon leans into the microphone and says, "We've seen the imitators, son. Hundreds of them. What makes you think you deserve this stage?" The boy, whose name is Michael, adjusts his fedora, a gesture so fluid and confident it feels like a glimpse of the past. He looks Simon directly in the eye, a silent challenge passing between them. Then, he simply says, "I am not here to imitate anyone. I am here to tell you why he became who he was. And to sing you a song you've never heard." The silence that follows is thick with confusion. The judges, Howie Mandel, Heidi Klum, and Sofia Vergara, exchange bewildered glances. The audience is utterly captivated, leaning forward in their seats. This isn't just a kid doing the moonwalk. This is something else entirely. The boy, Michael, takes the microphone off the stand, a heavy piece of history in his small hands. He paces slowly, the spotlight following him like a faithful shadow. He tells them that his great-grandmother once worked as a seamstress at Motown, that stories of a young Michael Jackson were her lullabies to his grandmother, passed down like precious heirlooms. He speaks of the man behind the myth, not the global superstar, but the little boy from Gary, Indiana, who was pushed and pushed until he became perfect for everyone else, but lost himself in the process. He tells the hushed crowd about the loneliness in the mansion, the longing for a childhood spent on tour buses instead of playgrounds. He speaks of a man who collected toys he never got to play with and built a wonderland he could only enjoy at night, alone. The audience is no longer looking at a novelty act. They are listening to a historian, a poet, a soul that seems far older than his 9 years. Tears are welling in Heidi Klum's eyes. Simon is motionless, his chin resting on his hand, his skepticism replaced by a deep, penetrating focus. The boy, Michael, concludes his story by saying, "They saw the legend. They saw the glove, the spins, the voice. But they forgot the boy. The boy who just wanted someone to play with. And tonight, I want to reintroduce you to him." The auditorium is dead silent, the air thick with emotion. Then, he places the microphone back in the stand, and without any musical cue, he begins to sing. But it isn't a Michael Jackson song. It's a simple, haunting melody, a lullaby almost, with lyrics about a firefly in a jar and a train whistle blowing, carrying a brother's dream away. It's an original song, one he says he wrote about stories from his great-grandmother. And his voice, while possessing the clear, angelic purity of a boy treble, has a raw, emotional texture, a depth that feels borrowed from a life lived in black and white. It's not an impersonation, it's an interpretation, a soul channeling a legacy. As the final, poignant note fades, the silence holds for a beat, 2 beats, 3. Then, the audience erupts. It's a standing ovation, not just of approval, but of emotional release. Sofia Vergara is openly weeping, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Howie Mandel is shaking his head in disbelief. Even Simon Cowell, the man who has made a career out of impenetrable stoicism, is visibly moved. He clears his throat, a rare crack in his armor. He says, "That was the most honest, most moving, and most original performance we have ever had on this show. You didn't just pay tribute to an icon. You reminded us of the human being. That is the real magic." But then, as the applause begins to die down, the boy named Michael walks to the edge of the stage. He looks out at the thousands of faces, all shining with admiration, and a flicker of something else passes through his eyes. It's not triumph, it's a profound sadness. He leans into the microphone one last time. He says, softly, "Thank you. My great-grandmother always said that the greatest performance is the one where the audience never knows it's a performance." He pauses, letting the words hang in the air. The applause stutters and dies. Confusion washes over the judges' faces again. "My real name isn't Michael," he continues. My name is Elijah. And the stories I told you, about the great-grandmother at Motown, the passed-down memories. I made them all up. I read about his life in books from the library. I just wanted to know what it felt like for people to look at me the way they looked at him. To feel loved, not for being a copy, but for being a story. A collective gasp sweeps through the auditorium. The narrative, the beautiful, heartbreaking story they had just invested in, was a fabrication. The boy had not only performed a song, he had performed a history, a lineage, a lie so artfully constructed it had moved them to tears. The twist was a masterstroke of performance art, blurring the lines between tribute, confession, and creation. Simon Cowell stared, for perhaps the first time in his life, utterly speechless. He had been outmaneuvered by a 9-year-old, not with talent alone, but with the very essence of the showmanship Michael Jackson himself had perfected, the art of making an audience believe. The boy, Elijah, simply picked up his fedora, gave a small, humble wave, and walked off the stage, leaving behind a stunned silence and a single, glittering glove, a symbol of the legacy he had just deconstructed and rebuilt in his own image. He had shown them that the greatest magic trick is not the illusion itself, but getting the audience to fall in love with the magician. Before you go, we want to hear from you. This young man captivated a nation, but now it's your turn to speak. From which part of the country are you watching this incredible story unfold? Let us know in the comments below. And if you were moved by Elijah's performance, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another moment of pure, unscripted magic.